Hey guys, back again, and we're going to finish the journey of Mum's story. Her journey from Harbin in China as a young toddler, I guess,
In Harbin, I was probably, when we left Harbin, I would have been about 7.
Yeah. Okay, so the first 7 years Harbin, and then there was a skip over to Tianjin, and then over to Hong Kong, and then across the equator into the southern hemisphere, to Townsville, touch base there for a day, then to Sydney, life in Sydney for 4 or 5 years or so, and then up to Brisbane, Mum's experience through school, first works, and last time we left off, it was Mum's family. Met Henry, married, had children, a little tribe, and sadly Dad passed away, Henry passed away. So here we have Mum on her own. A single mum, somewhat to a degree abandoned by family, by her church community, but Mum had some support, which Mum will share about as we jump into this next segment. Yeah, life as a single mum, 4 kids.
My kids were my lifesaver. There were times when I felt like giving up. But you guys kept me going. For that, I'm forever grateful. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. But there's no textbook, there's no instruction books. You just got to go and
move forward.
Yeah,
with what you got and without what you don't have.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like definitely. I mean, you didn't have a role model of a family, really. You didn't even have a father figure. Anatoly wasn't present, even though he was there for a few years. But then you come to, I guess, Dad, Stepan, your stepdad, would have been kind of there, didn't have a role model family, so to speak.
No, I didn't. So I'm sorry for any mistakes that I have made in bringing up your kids. But you were my life.
And I can't speak for Carol, Rick or Tracy, but for me, I felt that. I felt that you were for us. You were batting for us. You went to work for us. Now you put a roof over our heads. You fed us. You did the best with what you got, with what you had. And personally, when we sort of have a look, when I have a look at the past, all your kids are self-sufficient, they're making their own way, they're living their own life, making choices according to their values, which is great. You've basically set them up. You set up your kids to go out into the world, not to be a burden or a liability to others, but to be a blessing and to start their own families. And so, look, personally, I don't think apology is needed, because we can always look back in our experiences and I could have done better. But we did the best we could with what we had at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, like, you've covered a little bit about the birth of your children, and I know you sort of wanted to at this time they're kind of teenagers going, finding direction beyond school or education or just finishing off there. Can you sort of give a bit of an overview where your kids are going at this time that you find yourself single, feeding your family, and What was it like settling in, adjusting to the horrific losses, not just of Dad, but of family connection, warmth, support? Yeah.
Well, I suppose I can start from the top, and that would have been Carolyn.
Mm-hmm.
She was my firstborn, as everybody knows, and she was my strength. She
Mhm.
covered a lot of. She would have been about 13, 14 when your dad died.
14.
14.
Yep.
And I had to go to work and work long hours at times.
Mm-hmm.
But she was there to look after you kids.
Mm-hmm.
She would prepare dinner, she would make your lunches, and so she had a big responsibility on her shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And for that I'll be forever grateful to her.
Mm. Mm.
And when she finished school, she went to work for a while, and then she moved to Sydney
Mm-hmm.
to do nursing,
Yep.
or nurse's aid as it was called in those days.
Okay.
And it was my proudest moment
Mm.
when she graduated.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
At that stage I was married to Fred, and we of course both went to Sydney for her graduation,
Mm-hmm.
and to see her up on the stage there was awesome.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
There's one of my little chicks out there flying, left the nest,
Yes,
flying,
yes,
making her
absolutely.
way, following
Yes,
her giftedness.
her giftedness, yes, absolutely. She made her way quite well. I was very happy with her progress and with her gentle nature and things. She was a big blessing to the people that she nursed and been in contact with.
Mm. Mm.
And things. She did leave nursing for a while, and then when she went back, when she went to Perth, moved to Perth,
Mm-hmm.
she took it up and did the complete nursing course, which she graduated from, and worked in the public system.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, working in the public system, health system, is always very challenging.
Mm. Mm.
So she got a job working for a dentist who was anaesthetist.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to go from clinic to clinic, sort of giving general anaesthetic to people who had to have major work done on their teeth.
Oh,
And
okay,
give
yep.
them general anaesthetic so they don't feel the pain, you know. And she enjoyed that, but her boss was very disorganised, as most bosses are.
Mm.
But yes, and at the moment she's working with a school friend, Gwen Cavilla.
Mm-hmm.
She's her assistant. Gwen's got her own graphic business there,
Mm-hmm.
and Carolyn works for her part-time,
Mm.
which they enjoy each other's company,
Mm-hmm.
and they both got doggies,
Mm-hmm.
which is a common thing for the puppies to get together and
Yeah.
play. And
Do some puppy socialisation.
absolutely, yes.
Mm.
I remember our trip that, well, I've been to Perth several times, and she always took me around Perth and showed me the highlights of Perth and around Perth.
Mm.
It's a beautiful place. It really is.
It's true.
It's just pity there's about 4,000 kilometres from one side of Australia to the other.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of day trips and things like that. And then just a few years, just before COVID, we decided we were going to go to Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
And from Adelaide, we drove down to Victor Harbour for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we had an amazing time, just the two of us, walking on the beach, exploring the place. And yeah, it was an amazing place, really beautiful and peaceful and restful, and just a special time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Connecting. Yeah.
We are now planning another trip, meeting in Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
Adelaide is a midway point.
Okay.
Brisbane to Perth, or Perth to Brisbane.
Mm-hmm.
Adelaide sits right in the middle of it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're planning in about April, May, when
Mm.
it's a little bit cooler, to meet up there and do the Great Ocean Road
Yeah.
to Melbourne. and stop along the way and explore Adelaide itself, and maybe explore Melbourne and things. But it doesn't matter if we do anything or nothing.
Yeah.
It's just being together.
Hanging
That
out.
is the important part, yes.
Yeah,
That's where we're up to there.
continuing the relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And next one down the line, in firing line,
Yeah.
is Rick.
Rick. Yeah. Second born.
It's my second
Your
born.
second born.
Yes, yes. And you probably can tell more stories about Rick than I can.
Well, look, we'll just keep it to your perspective. And look, I may have to throw in some of my perspective, but
Of course.
But yeah, you lead us through what you're thinking about your second born,
My
your
second
first boy.
My first boy, yes. Well, he was a very big boy born to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he, from a very early stage, he started displaying leadership qualities as bossing his younger brother to pick up all the toys, put the toys on and organising everything. Whenever there's something like that had to be done, Rick would be nowhere to be seen. He left it all to his brother Rodney. And so that was his strong, or not strong I suppose, but
Tell it as it is, Mum.
yeah.
Tell it as it is.
He was very bossy. He was very assertive, a bully in a way,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And Rodkin probably got a few scars from the experiences of playing together.
This one here.
Yes.
5 stitches.
5 stitches.
Uh-huh.
And I think you also have one in your lip too, didn't you?
No, I think that was Rick on his chin, or Rick, because
I don't know.
wasn't he doing a Superman off the soapbox?
Probably.
I think his cape was too heavy. It didn't work. But yeah, I remember him jumping off, where the palm tree was at Atunga Street, where the
Right.
bats used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the launch pad was, I believe.
I see.
On a crate or a box. And yeah.
There was a lot of self-made playthings.
Absolutely.
One that I do remember is your dad was putting up some posts for the fence,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a pile of gravel and sand on a bit of a slope, and so Dad put a bit of iron sheeting on it
Mm-hmm.
to keep it being blown away or washed away
Yep.
and
Yep.
things like that. So it was a Saturday afternoon, and we had some visitors from church, and I don't know whose idea it was, but I'd imagine it would have been Rick's, to turn that into a slippery slide.
Yes.
You remember that episode?
I don't, but I know. I would imagine there's going to be some blood and carnage. Tin.
There was a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And so Rick went down. He didn't check the iron or anything. There was a nail sticking up.
Yep.
And so he comes up the stairs. We had a high set home, as you know. He comes up the stairs holding onto his backside, and blood seeping through his hands and on the floor and things. Like, oh, what happened with as you would, you panic. And so I think I rang, I don't know how we managed that, but I ended up taking him to Dr. Patel, and I think he might have put some stitches in it or something like that. I'm not too sure.
He was
But
a survivor.
He survived, yes.
Yeah. And he went on, like, after school. What was your perspective, through his teens, through his sort of career type overview?
Type there. Yes, well, after school, he didn't finish grade, I think he was in grade 11, but there was a bit of an issue at the school there. It made it very difficult for him. He was blamed for something he didn't do. it was the pastor's son that was involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
So Rick was blamed for it.
Scapegoat.
Yes. So he didn't want to go back, and I supported him there. And Fred was working at G. James, so he arranged for him to come and do some relief work or some training and things. And Rick showed an aptitude towards drawing.
Tech drawing.
And things like that. And everything was done by hand in those days. And so they saw the potential in him and they trained him up. I remember him coming and saying that his boss told him that his printing was like a cockroach running on the paper because he had a very distinct, very artistic print, but not suitable for drawings. You know.
Needed to be more official, maybe.
Yes,
or
that's
to,
right.
to code.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, he sort of took it all on board and worked his way up. And when he was about in his 20s, he applied for a job with a mate of his, Lee. Lee. And he also worked in the drawing office. So the two of them decided to apply for a job in Singapore that came up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Carolyn and I taking him to the airport, and Rick was petrified of flying.
Okay.
It was not his idea. And in those days, you had to walk onto the tarmac, approach the plane, go up the stairs and get in. And here's Carolyn and I standing at the viewing platform, watching Rick with his bag, knapsack, walking towards this plane. And every so often he would stop and look up at the plane, take a few steps, stop and look up again, suss it. And I said, Caroline, you watch, he's going to turn around and run in a minute, run back again.
He may have been just checking for cracks.
I don't know what was going through his mind. But anyway, he did board the plane for Singapore, and he said later that the hostie came and asked him whether he was okay because he was hanging onto the seat.
Armrests.
So tight that all his hands were white. So they said, are you all right? You're right, Mr. Vaughan? You know, and anyway, she says, look, I'll get you a stiff drink after we get airborne. So that's sort of took a bit of the pain away there. And so from there, he sort of worked his way up in Singapore. He was sent to neighbouring companies. He didn't particularly like the way they did business in Singapore. They all had degrees, and they thought, but they knew nothing practical. They had the degrees and they thought they were pretty smart. And Rick didn't have a degree. He was self-taught in a way. So I think from there he went to Thailand, to Bangkok, and he worked there for, I can't remember the time frame, but for my 50th birthday he bought me a ticket to come and visit him in Thailand.
Yeah, cool.
That was another story anyway, so I went and stayed there for about a month and explored Thailand. He reckons I saw sides of Thailand that he didn't know he was existed because his chauffeur, he'd never used to drive in Thailand. After a few episodes where he used to have a bike there, and the traffic in Thailand was immense, slow moving, very little space between the cars and things. And so the guy that used to pick him up on the bike, Rick would be sitting, and Big was a big man in comparison to Thai people. Thai people are very tiny and very fatigued. And he got knocked off the bike a couple of times because the driver didn't account that he was sitting there holding things shoulders off. So it came through. Next thing, Rick would be
on the tarmac.
On the tarmac.
Oh dear.
So that was his bit of his experience there. And after that, he decided the company gave him a chauffeur-driven car,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little bit safer.
Yeah.
And so when the chauffeur would drop the Rick in the office, he was at free time to take me around not Phuket, Bangkok, and we went to some amazing, interesting places.
Mm.
One place that stood out was this temple, probably just a little bit bigger than this lounge, and in the middle of that was a 3-ton solid gold Buddha.
Mm.
And during the war, they had to hide it, disguise it, because otherwise the enemies would have taken it away.
Cashed in.
Yeah, and they're very, very selective, even now, who they take to see that it's not on your normal tourist agenda. But I was very privileged to go and see this 3 tons of solid gold.
That's heavy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, pricey.
Yeah, and I can go on and tell a whole lot of other stories in Thailand and things, but yes. So from Thailand, I think he moved to India. That was another experience for him. He worked in, can't remember, I won't worry about the name of the city, and gained some more experience there. Came back to Australia for a short time. He couldn't settle to the way that things were done here. Meetings after meetings after meetings, and not enough time spent on the job. Over there, you're given the job, and that's it.
Go do it.
Go and do it. And so he went back to India again, and after India, he got a job in Dubai. And in Dubai, he met Magdi, his wife, and they got married. Meinhard and I, we went for the wedding, and that was the culture in an Arab country is very, very different. But in Dubai, because anything that you saw that looked like gold was gold. It was so ornate in their buildings, in their offices and things like that. It's just, it was a real eye-opener. I've never seen so much gold in my life, you know. And so he worked there, and they got married, and then 2 years later I get a phone call from Rick Sunday morning saying, "Oh, congratulations, you're a grandma." I says, "Oh, lovely, when's my expecting the baby?" He says, "She had it on Thursday." And I think it's the only time I ever used the F word.
Okay.
How dare you not tell me that you were expecting a child? You know, I'm the grandmother. She says, Maggie's mum didn't know either. We didn't want to trouble or stress the grandparents out because we're so far away, and if anything went wrong, didn't want you. I said, well, it was my privilege as a grandma to worry as much as I wanted to. So a few months later, he was born in September, I went to Dubai in November. I spent my birthday there. I don't know which one, don't ask me. And spent the time there and met Buddha, this chubby little thing. And you know how tiny Magdi is. And I used to think, how did she ever carry this baby? But her mum came from Ethiopia, so I met her, and she also had a sister living in Dubai. So that was an interesting time. And then they came to Australia for holidays and things, and you were here too with Christy and the 2 cousins. Cousins they met, and
Cousins.
Cousins, yeah. I remember the first time, it was in the middle of summer, so we put one of those sprinkler hoses on the ground.
Oh, yeah, the green ones.
The green ones. So we put it on, thought it was terrific. So Buddha steps off the bitumen or concrete slab onto the grass, and he's going like this with his feet, like a cat on a hot tin roof. He's never walked on the grass before.
Yeah, wow.
Because
That's,
there's no grass. It's a desert to
Yeah.
start off with, and you know the roads used to get so hot there that the tires on the cars would melt
So you'd want shoes all the time.
all the
outside.
time. Yes. So that was sort of him coming back to Australia, and then he realised was that he wanted his son to grow up in Australia. It was the best place to be, and they started making preparations for that. And they moved to Australia. And the first Christmas, they was living with me while they were trying to find a place of their own.
Okay, yep.
And the first Christmas, we thought we'd do the right thing, and Rick got dressed up as a Santa Claus and came in through the front door. Buddha took one look at him and burst out crying, hanging on to Mum. He was so frightened and things like that. Maggie and I couldn't stop laughing because we just thought it was so funny, you know. But the poor child was really stressed out. But anyway, later on, when everything calmed down and Rick came back into the room in his normal clothes, he says, "Mummy, Santa Claus had the same sandals, shoes as Dad has." You know, so I don't know whether he realised it was Dad, but the shoes were the same. He noticed that. So, and then I bought the house, and the rest of history.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And now we sort of, I'd like to talk a little bit about your life.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. You were very, well, with Rick, there wasn't much chance really. He just took over everything. But you were always there. And one of the things as you grew older, you both developed love for playing with cars. And then you had trial bikes that you used to go bashing around in the forest behind the quarry there. And many times you used to go there and come back with few scratches and, you know, injuries from the experience. And but this love of mechanical things, bikes and beach buggy, cars and everything, it made our house look a little bit like a wrecking yard. Parts and cars scattered all over in the front there and on the side of the house and things, until one day, I don't know whether you remember this.
No.
One day I had a jack of it and I said, "Richard, Rodney, come here." And you knew you two were in trouble. You were already adults by that stage and things. So I said, "Get over here. See this mess here? Clean it all out." "Yes, Mum." And so you did.
That's probably when we first started using trading paste to get rid of stuff.
No, I think you just took it to the track in the bush and dumped it there. I don't know what you did to it.
I can't remember, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to incriminate yourself anyway.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was this. And then I remember you went to New Zealand with one of your friends for 6 months. Lived on the farm, a sheep farm. And when you came back from there, you became a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Yes. You didn't want to eat meat anymore. Well, that was all right. That's okay. But it was a good experience. And after that, you went to Mount Isa. Worked there for 3 months. It was a contract work for 3 months. And that's when your life changed around. Because you were into drugs and smoking and everything else, and your life changed around. And you gave your life, rededicated your life to God again.
Yep.
You came back to Brisbane and you got rebaptised. I still remember it was one of the pastors at Park Ridge Church in his swimming pool.
No, it was just an elder.
An elder, was he?
An elder at Logan Reserve.
Logan Reserve.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
we connected, or
Yeah.
he connected with me, and we formed a relationship.
Yep.
And and when I was convicted to be rebaptised, I asked him.
Yes. To do the honours,
Yeah.
and the whole family was there.
Mm-hmm.
Carolyn and Rick and Tracy, my sister Tamara
Yep.
with her 2 boys, and
And-
so it was
And Randall.
Randall. Was he? He was
yeah,
there too?
Randall was there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I can tell a story about you, Rick, and Randall there.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll leave that in the last section.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
because
You know the one I'm talking about.
I think so. Yeah.
All right, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on forever and ever. Different stories, different things that are coming back to me now as I'm speaking. That's not necessarily in my notes that I've made, but yes. So, and when you were going to church there, you met up with your first wife, and you got married, and the wedding was a very exciting thing, because Rick was living in Singapore.
Overseas for
in
the last 10 years or something.
I don't know
Or-
how long he was
It
there.
was quite a few years he'd been
Yeah,
out of Australia.
absolutely. And anyway, you walked outside in the front yard, and there's Rick getting out of the taxi. It's supposed to have been a surprise, and you busted him.
Well, I was surprised to see my brother
of
getting
course.
out, no notice or anything, but
Yeah.
I don't think he. I think he was probably more surprised to see me there on the corner looking at him. What are you doing here, bro?
Well, he knew that why you were at my place because of the preparation and everything else, and I don't think I even knew that he was coming.
No, you didn't.
No.
No one. He just showed up with no notice.
No notice, yeah, I thought so. Yes, so that was that. And of course, then a few years later, Christy was born, my first granddaughter. And I still refer to her, my princess. And she says, I says, you're my favourite granddaughter. She looked at me once. She says, Nana, I'm the only one you've got. I said, yes, that's why you're my favourite. Yeah, she's an amazing young lady now. And how the time has flown from there. And then I remember our trip going to Tasmania, around Tasmania. That was an exciting time, and we discovered a lot there. Well, I did anyway. And picking apricots. That was amazing. We went to the orchard to get some apricots. They were $3 a kilo. And it was already end of the season, so they picked the main crop, and there was some stragglers left. So the farmer said, well, there you go, you can go on those rows and pick whatever you want. Put them in the box, I'll weigh them and charge you for it. So we all hoed into it. 1 in the box, 2 in the mouth. 1 in the box, 2 in the mouth. I've never, ever tasted apricots like that since. And at one stage I didn't even bother buying them because they were just...
Yeah, it set the bar high.
Very, very high.
They were the best apricots I've ever tasted.
Yeah. And then another place we bought a huge bag of cherries, and that's all we munched on for a couple of days in our travels going from one place to another. So that's another one that was really a special time for me. And I do remember Christy doing some somersaults down the slope there. She was always very much into gymnastics and exercises and things. So
Active.
she was practicing some of that, and she wanted me to do some too. Yeah, right. I just lie down and roll down.
Look, that's how would you say? That's exercise.
That's compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was doing somersaults and things like that. So that was a very, very special time for me. And then I think, yes, you went to Avondale and you were doing ministry or theology. You practiced being a minister in quite a number of country churches. And then you decided it wasn't quite what you wanted to be, and you changed direction to become a teacher. And at that stage you met Jody while you were studying at Avondale, and Jody was living there. And so you and Jody got together and you got married. And that was an amazing time, that was. And then, of course, your graduation and your life as a married man. It's just been amazing to watch the development of your life all the way down. It was just incredible. You should write a book. And Rick too. I mentioned it to Rick years ago. I says, you should write a book on your experiences in the... he said, Mum, you wouldn't want to read it. No, I'm not writing. I'm not incriminating myself. So I can only just imagine what went on. But anyway, that's besides the point. And yeah, and here you are, you and Jody here, doing this amazing experience for me.
We're just capturing it, and you're just sharing this amazing experience of your life. Yeah. And so I guess Tracy would have been next in line.
Yes,
No.
she's next in the firing line,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
I would say. Yes. Well, she had a very rough start at the beginning, as you probably would know, with
The blood work.
the blood work and things. But she recovered very quickly, and there was no repercussions once it was fixed. It was fixed, and she went to school, to Sevi School, and she was a school captain in the Mount Gravatt.
Okay, yep.
In the last year.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Didn't you? Yeah, she was a captain.
Good on you, Trace.
Yeah, I'm letting out your secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was an amazing moment. And then when she finished high school, she went and did a course in TAFE catering,
Oh, yep.
which she didn't particularly like. It wasn't as what she expected it to be. It's a lot of hard work and everything, but she did that. She finished the course, and then she joined the workforce. I think her first job was with Queensland Rail. She was in sales and marketing and advertising. Oh, she might have worked for Subway first, Subway, and she was involved in ad creation, you know, setting up food just the right place and everything else in gardens. And so she got a little bit of exposure to sales and promotions. Marketing, that's the word, that's right, yes. And she then got a job with Queensland Rail, and that was amazing. There were so many perks that they got, and she would get free tickets to go to top shows, and she always took me with her.
Okay.
And then she managed to get a cut price ticket for me to go from here to Cairns on the the Queenslander in first class, and that was really something. I've never been to Cairns before, and I've never been on a long train journey like that. But it was comfortable. The only thing, I couldn't sleep because clickety-clack, clickety-clack, clickety-clack. It just, you know.
Gotcha.
It was, yeah, and of course I flew back from Cairns to here. So that was an interesting experience. And then I know that the team at QR, they went for a promotional trip on the Outlander to Longreach. So she sort of saw a bit of that. And then I think after that, she came and worked at Sunstate for me for a while. I got her a job there. And then one day she says, oh, I'm going to quit Sunstate after about 5 years. And I want to go, because Rick was overseas then in Dubai. I'm going to Dubai.
Okay.
And that was a bit of a shock. And I had to, well, she went and told Errol about it. And then Errol called me into the office and he says, did you know anything about this? I said, Errol, I only found out last night. And that was it. So they gave her a big send-off. She was very popular with the staff. And she went and worked in Dubai for 12 months with Rick and Magdi. She stayed with them for a while. And so she experienced a little bit of life in a very affluent but very restricted environment there. You know, no drink, no alcohol. No, but there was always a way around that, as you can imagine. But it was very, very different. So she came back, and I can't remember where she went to, but it opened up her a lot bigger scope to where to go and how, because working overseas, it's always a feather in your hat. You know, so, and then she met up with Steve again. They knew each other as teenagers growing up.
Okay, yep.
So they were, and I don't know how they crossed paths again, because Steve would work in the mines.
Yep.
And he came to Brisbane, and they met up, and as they said, the rest was history. I remember Tracy arranging the first meeting, me and Steve, and Tracy. We went out to dinner at the Garden City in the food court there. There was a nice little restaurant, not Indian, Italian restaurant, so we sort of got acquainted. And they moved in together, lived together for quite a while, and then the boys came, and that was a very traumatic experience. I remember Tracy invited me to come for the first ultrasound to see the baby, and so Steve was there, and so they said, look, we can only in the beginning take only one visitor in the room. And so Steve went and said, we'll call you when we're ready for you. And I'm sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Then Steve comes out with a very straight face and he says, we're ready for you. I says, okay. He calls me Maria and says, we're ready for you, Maria. I says, okay. So I went in there. I took one look at the screen and I'm going, is that 2 babies there? And the nurse said, gee, you're quick. She said, these 2 had no idea. And anyway, and there was Tracy laughing and crying all at the same time. And so that was my first look at the 2 twinnies, well, the 2 boys.
Your grandchildren.
My 2 grandchildren, yeah. Twins, wow. But we never refer to them as twins. Tracy and Steve wanted to be individuals. They dress differently, they act differently, they've got different personalities and things like that. But
they're brothers.
They're brothers, absolutely, yeah. But going back one step, there were 2, she went in for a regular checkup. And the obstetrician said, right, we've got to put you in, we've got to Caesar you. And that was a shock, completely unprepared for it. What they discovered is what is commonly known as twin-to-twin transfusion, meaning that they shared the one placenta, as twins do, and little Blake was taking all the food.
Okay.
As he still does.
Well, not by choice in the belly.
Yeah. And Jalen was very, very tiny. So they decided to take them and, you know,
nurse them equally, provide for Jalen.
Yes, yeah. So I was there with her, and Steve came dashing over when I rang him to say, look, this is what's happening. And we were waiting for the theatre to become available. And when they came, Jalen was only 1 kilo, just over 1 kilo. Steve could have held him in his palm of his hand.
Wow, that's small. And
Yeah.
well, even
Yeah.
here, this has taken quite a few years back.
A couple of years back.
Yeah.
There he is there.
Yeah.
That's Blakey there.
Mm.
You know. And Blakey was 2 kilos. He was
Mm.
double the size.
Double the weight.
So, but what they also, because they were such early babies and Jalen was so small, he had to have an oxygen tube to help him breathe and develop. And but 2 months they stayed in hospital, and I can only imagine, or I can't even imagine, what it must have been for Tracy to go home without the boys. But she would go to the hospital every day and stay with them. I spent a lot of time at the hospital with her, and so did Steve. And then the day finally came, and they came home.
Yeah.
And so that was another journey for Tracy. And as a mother, she did an amazing job with them, with 2 of them. You know, how do you handle? It's bad enough having 1 baby, you know, attending, but 2, they both cried at the same time sometimes. And who do you pick up first? And so, but she managed, and you know, a big credit to her for that. And then now they're 10 years old, and they've just changed schools the beginning of this year, and they are just thriving in that. They really love it. It's a private school, and I think probably from Tracy's own experience going to a Christian private school, that was at the back of her mind. And now Blake and Jalen go to it's Uniting Church School, and not far from here. It's huge. It's got all the facilities there, and they are enjoying life at school, enjoying school now.
Yeah.
And that's sort of oh yes. And this year, Tracy and Steve tied the knot. They thought that this year. No, it was last year.
Yeah, it's through the pandemic.
Yeah, yes, that's right. And so last year they tied the knot at a very quiet wedding, just the closest friends and relatives. Not everybody was able to attend, but Buddha and Christy were there, so that was good represented.
You had your grandies there as well.
Sorry?
You had your grandies
Oh,
there.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So that's probably as much as brings everybody up to date in there.
Well, there's a lot of time. Yeah. So as a single mum, what you've just shared with us, you know, is you have pretty much nurtured and supported your children to go out on these journeys, on these experiences as a single mum. So if we back it up a bit from, like, obviously we're at current time, but back it up when what was going on, obviously you're a single mum, but you're in the workforce here. Through that time where you found yourself single mum, it was a hard time for you.
It was. But I've made it.
Yeah.
And I think I gave the best I could for my children without sort of suffocating them. I think I gave them breathing space to develop their own each child has a different need, different interests and things, and I try to support them in their choices and things. Some of the choices they made in the teenage years, I did not agree with it. But I did make a point in telling them, if you're going to smoke, if you're going to drink, I want to know about it from you, not hear it from somebody behind. Oh, I saw your son or your daughter in the pub, or things like that. Or whatever you do, I need to know about it, and then I can, either support you or...
Well, yeah. Instead of finding out on the grapevine.
On the grapevine, yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate, because I do remember you saying that to me. And it was clear you didn't agree, but look, you're old enough to do your choice. And I still felt, in those years where I was, doing things you don't necessarily agree with, I still felt your love and your support in life, through that time. You didn't turn your back on me.
Oh, no, that was,
it was,
to me, I suppose I felt I'm there to love you, to guide you, but I'm not there to suffocate you. So, and I think we built on that relationship quite well. I've got to relate to one incident here, stepping back, I think. When you were living at home, you decided to grow your own pot, marijuana.
It was cheaper.
And I had a fern house. And it was my habit on Saturday morning to go and check out my plants and see what's going on and things. And I was still married to Fred at that stage, and we were going around looking at it. And I saw these 2 or 3 pots there. And I says, oh, did you get me some more plants? I says, I don't remember buying this. And he burst out laughing. He said, you know what that is? I said, no. He says, that's marijuana. And I'm like, oh, I think I know who's responsible for this. So I got the weed killer. Remember that?
Well, look, all I remember is my plants started to shrivel, start to wilter and die. No matter how much resuscitation I tried, it didn't work.
And everything else was thriving around it.
Yeah.
It was funny watching you, though, your reaction. You tried to look very inconspicuous, sort of looking at the plants and then later on you gave up on that one. You put some pots on the top of the roof of the patio. They didn't do too well there either because the sun took care of them. And we had an old-fashioned barbecue, a wood barbecue.
Oh, yeah, next to the shed.
There. And, of course, where the chimney came out from the fireplace, it had an L shape in there. So you thought, oh, this is a good place to grow it. So you had a couple of pots on that L shape, some pots in there.
Okay, yep.
And then, of course, when we lit up the barbecue, they roasted. So I think after that you might have given up. I don't know. But anyway,
I know nothing. I'm not going to say anymore. Yeah. But that sounds like it was it on your property.
Yeah, well, that's what what happened outside the property, I probably don't know.
Yeah,
but I was always there for you.
You were.
Yeah. And but I also let you live your own life. All of you. I let you all live your own life, make your own mistakes, and learn from them. So that was that bit, I think, Yeah, but that marijuana plant, I can close my eyes now and visualise you walking around looking quite dramatically. And then another one that just came to my mind too was going on the Christmas toy run.
Oh, with Rick and Meinhard.
Lee, you all had bikes and you all had pretty big bikes and things. And so I think there might have been somebody else, I don't know, but these are the 4 main
Key-
characters. What's the other guy that used to work with Rick? His wife is very sick at the moment. She's got cancer. But never mind. We went on this toy run, but before we met up with the rest of the crowd in the Botanical Gardens, where all the bikes congregated and, you know, gave all their toys and things, we went for a drive through Tambourine Village, Canungra, and from Canungra, the back road to Tambourine. Now, I was on the back of Rick's bike, and I was scared to, like anything, I've never felt comfortable on it, but I was talked into it, and the only protection I had, I think, was a helmet, if that. And going around those nerves, and Rick kept on saying, just lean with the bike, just lean with the bike. And you're about that much from the ground. I'm thinking, yeah, lean with the bike, you know. But anyway, we survived. And we got to we were the leading bike. We got to Tambourine Village, and there's this petrol station there, Shell petrol station. And it had gravel driveway. And Rick was going to fuel up with fuel, obviously. So I got off the bike first. Then Rick got off the bike, and as he got off the bike, you put it down, put it up and everything. Next thing, the bike goes over. The first thing, Rick is looking at the back to see if anybody's following. He grabbed the bike up and put it up and said, don't you tell anybody about this. So you just don't do that.
And now you've told someone.
I've told everybody now. It doesn't matter, I think.
Yeah, I think it's enough in the past not
to worry
be a
about
problem.
Yeah. And talking about bike rides with Rick, when I was in Dubai, he had a Japanese bike, a very fast Japanese bike. And he said to me, he says, Mum, you want to go for a ride? I said, yeah, why not? So again, just a helmet, nothing else. And we took off. And I can feel my helmet's been blown off my head. And I'm thinking, he must be going pretty fast. I looked over and he was going 220 kilometres an hour.
It's pretty quick.
I closed my eyes and hang for my dear life and things. So when we got back home, I said to him, I said, Rick, how fast were you going? He said, well, how fast did you think I was going? I said, well, I saw 220. He says, well, that's close enough. So he must have gone over that. He said, well, don't you tell MACD about it.
Well, MACD will know now.
Well, she will probably know about it now, yeah, but that's all in the past now.
It is.
Rick survived and I survived, and, you know, those are the days that, yeah.
So how did you survive coming, through those times, your career?
My career, all right. I started, after Dad died, I had to get a full-time job. And I got a job with a place in Wacol called Boral Masonry.
Yep.
It's quite a distance to go, but it was working in the accounts section, paying accounts payable and payroll, which I didn't know. I knew accounts payable, but I didn't know much about the payroll system. And it just so happened the gentleman who was interviewing me was Errol Peters. And he sort of guided me through it and everything. And for some reason, somehow, he saw value in me, I suppose, and he gave me the job. So we worked together for about 18 months at Boral Masonry. And because Boral was owned by Boral, you know...
A big company.
It's a big company, yeah, absolutely. Then he came to work one time and he called me into his office and he closed the door. I thought, oh, this is serious. He says, oh, I'm leaving Boral Masonry. I got a job with a brand new company at Fisherman Islands. It's called Sun State Cement. We're looking for new staff. because they only just started operating.
Mm.
And he said, would you be interested to coming and working there? I was like dumbfounded. I was pretty comfortable at Boral Masonry. I picked up the ropes and I was very confident. And so I said, can I think on it? He said, yeah, sure. So he left. He went to Sunstate. And then he rang me up and he said, have you given it some thought? I said, yes, I have. And before that, I didn't know where Fisherman Islands was. So Fred and I took a drive there one time, and that was before the gateway was built or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, do I want to do this every day? It's about 30 kilometres, I think, away. And that I saw it as a challenge. And so I said, yes, I'll take it on. So I had to come in for an interview with the general manager and Errol and things, and I didn't hear for a little while. I thought, oh, well, I didn't get it because the decision would be made by the general manager, So anyway, Errol rang up and he says, are you still interested? I said, yes. He says, well, the position is yours. He said, you were second on the list, but the first lady, she got another job. So if you want it,
it's yours.
It's yours.
Yeah, cool.
So I gave my notice, and I was very excited. Went to Sunstate. Everything was new. Everything was polished. Everything was clean. As Boral Masonry, where they made the masonry blocks, it was covered with dust, cement, and everything else. It wasn't the cleanest environment. I was like, oh, this is paradise here. Working in this environment. It sounded very challenging, very exciting, and even with my lack of knowledge of what would be required in the job, I jumped in.
Okay.
Jumped in.
Into the unknown.
To the unknown, very much unknown.
Wow. Sounds like the story of your life.
True. So I went and I got the job, and I met the general manager, Alan, and the rest of the staff. There was a sales manager there, Cole, and the works superintendent, Brian. And then it was only probably a skeleton staff in those days because everything was automated. And so that was no need to have a big base.
Human resources.
Resources, yeah. So the challenge began because we had to learn the system, had to set everything up. There was nothing that I could copy or carry on from somebody else who's done the job. I was it.
It was the birth of something, of a movement, of a company.
Yeah. And Errol was instrumental in guiding me through that. He was very patient with me, and maybe he just saw the potential in me. If he could train me the way he wanted me to be, that was really good. And then sort of life went on, and during that stage I was still married to Fred, and then when we separated I was distraught again, as you can imagine, and I had some tremendous support from all the office executives there, which was Alan, Errol, Brian and Cole. Cole not so much because Cole was the sales manager. He was out on the road a lot of the time.
Okay, yep.
But the other three were on site. So they were very patient with me and very encouraging. I do remember one particular morning, Alan called me into his office and closed the door, and I was like, when the general manager closes the door on you, it's serious business.
Well, you got the code of silence. Something's going down.
Something's going down. And he says, oh, Maria, I just want to have a chat with you. I know you're going through a very hard time. How can I help? He said, because at that stage I still had a big mortgage. and the interest rates were 19%.
That's pretty hectic.
It was very
Yeah.
hectic. Oh, absolutely. And so I told him, I says, I don't know how I'm going to manage. I might even lose my house if I. He says, can I make some suggestions? I said, by all means. He says, if you approach your bank and ask for a lower mortgage, you should be able to get 13% interest
Okay.
rather than paying 19%. This is what you ask for, this is who you see, and things, and a couple of other things that he threw in there that set me on the right motion financially.
A good financial advice.
Very good financial
Yeah.
advice, yeah.
Yeah.
Errol gave me some financial advice as well,
Mm-hmm.
so it just sort of correlated. But coming from somebody like Alan's position, being a general manager, that really
Yeah.
meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
It sort of calmed me down a little bit. It gave me the confidence, yes, I can do this. And then Brian stepped in. He was more of a support guy for me. He offered me his friendship, and he was just always there for me, always checking up on me and things. And then when I had to go to court for settlement, financial settlement with Fred, and also then later on for a divorce, it sort of gave me confidence with the advice that Alan has given me, and a confidence that Brian was there to support me. He was there.
You weren't alone.
I wasn't alone, because I do remember after the court hearing, we got in the car and he says, let's go for lunch. And I just burst out into tears, completely uncontrollable. You know, he just sat there and held my hand and everything's going to be all right, da-da-da. And so I was forever grateful to him. And it was a great friendship for about 10 years. And, yeah, he was just there. We spent a lot of time together, going away, and he was just there. He was tremendous. And Errol was also very helpful, but in a different area. So the three players there were very different, and I was able to draw on any one of them, whatever I needed, and that sort of saw me through.
It sounds like the people at Sun State Cement supported you in different ways through the hard times.
The hard times.
The hard times, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I was a free woman again, and when I went to the divorce court, I do remember, and when the lawyer or the solicitor announced the marriage null and void or whatever they say, I said, yay! And I just couldn't help myself. She looked up and looked at me as if to say, yeah, okay. And then she had a smirk on her face. So, and I worked my way through at Sun State as different positions became available, or they wanted to expand in the office environment. They gave me more responsibilities because they could see I was capable, I was dedicated, and yes, it was really very encouraging. And in the end, I ended up in the position being the office manager in charge of about 4 girls. And then I had my back problems, and after my first surgery, the Dr. LeBron, my orthopedic surgeon, when I went for a checkup, he says, Maria, have you thought of retiring? I was 62 at that stage. And I said, no. He says, well, I strongly suggest that you do. You would not be able to sit at the desk for 8 hours. He says, I can get the paperwork all set up for you. If you can't go onto the pension straight away, you'll be able to go onto disability payments.
Okay.
So I had support on every side all around me.
Someone was looking after you.
Yeah, up there. So I came home, and Rick was still living at home, and he said to me, "What did Dr. LeBron say?" And I burst into tears, just like, "Oh, no, what happened? What happened?" I said, "Dr. LeBron told me I have to retire." And he's like, "And you're crying?" I said, "I want to retire on my terms, not when somebody else tells me to, you know." I would have, 64 was the official retirement age in those days. So I had 2 more years to serve. But at this stage, I did 25 years at Sunstate. Once I calmed down and thought about it rationally, I thought, yep. I went and saw, I had a different general manager. I had about 4 or 5 different managers. They didn't stay. They kept moving them from one company to another to another. And so I went and saw, I can't remember his name now. And I said, "Look, this is the doctor's letter here. I'm afraid I have to give my resignation on medical grounds." And he looked at me in disbelief, I think. And he says, "Well, we're going to be sorry to see you go, but I can see why." So they supported me and had a big send-off and everything else. And then I was a free person again. No job, no responsibility, job responsibility. Your children all settled in nicely.
Self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient in your own things. So, and I always wanted to see Canada. So that was my goal.
Your bucket list.
My
on your bucket list. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My present to me, for all the hard work that I put in, was this trip to Canada. So that was in 2010.
2000. No, that was 2012.
12.
But before that, 2010,
Yes.
you have India.
Yes. In 2010, I was dating Jack, and his family had a big wedding in India, as they do. So all his relatives were over there, and we went to India for the wedding.
Yep.
I was in a lot of pain, and so I couldn't do a lot of the activities.
With your back?
No, it wasn't my back. It was in my on the side of my tummy.
Okay.
And really, I did not enjoy that trip for many reasons, because all the family got together. They would start talking in English, and then they'd break into the native, and I'm sitting there, you know. But anyway, it was what it was. And so we got back to Brisbane. I went to another doctor because Jack couldn't be my doctor anymore. And I had a hernia. So they had to operate on my hernia. Got rid of that, and I healed, and I was okay. So, and then in 2012, I decided it was time for me to go and explore Canada.
The Rocky Mountains.
My Rocky Mountains. Yeah. So we landed in Vancouver. I think I got there a couple of days early because I wanted to explore the area for the
tour
group joined in, because I was always very adventurous. Always wanted to see and do things, and it's not always what the rest of the group wanted to do.
Yeah, well, why not tag on some extra time for
That's
that?
right, exactly. Vancouver was an amazing place. It's not very large, and the main thing in Vancouver was the Stanley Gardens, which was just round the corner in the inlet. And so I walked in there, and there'd be squirrels on the ground and all that sort of thing. So I enjoyed that. And then when the group joined up, we started the land tour. One of the things that really stood out for me was the Rocky Mountains, and I think it was in Banff. I can't remember the city, but that's where I took my first helicopter ride.
Oh, okay.
And then
up over the
Rocky Mountains that were covered in snow, and it was like icing on a cake. It was. and then down the bottom there was a lake, frozen lake, that just started to melt, and it was just amazing. And the thought that came into my mind was, how great thou art.
Mm. You're awed by the creation.
Yeah.
Yeah, his handiwork.
Yeah. I don't know where the thought came from, it just did.
Mm.
And so we landed, that was okay. And the next thing after that, I think we went to other places in Vancouver. Oh, the trip on the Mountaineer, which was
The train with the
dome glass.
Dome, yeah, you
Yes.
can get 360 degree.
Oh, 360
Yeah.
degrees, yeah. And the service was gold class.
Yeah.
And when I had a choice of going gold class or silver class, and I rang Rick up. I says, I booked a trip, and I've got a choice of going gold class or silver class. I said, what do you reckon? And can you afford it? I said, yeah, I can afford it. He said, so what's your question? Go for it.
Absolutely.
And so that was amazing. It was a night stopover. It didn't travel during the day.
Oh, okay.
During the night.
Wow.
So we left
No
early in the morning.
clickety-clack.
Yeah, no clickety-clack. They booked us into a hotel, and then the next day we continued back to Vancouver. We sort of did a loop around back to Vancouver.
Okay.
And that was very interesting. I found out later that what they do at Night Stop, there's a documentary on it, they go through the whole train, check absolutely everything. Its engine, its brakes, its systems, clean up, mechanical, top up with the food. They use that time to prepare
to keep it rolling safely.
Yes, yeah. So, and also gave us a bit of a more leg room to move around in. So that was that, and from there we went to Alaska, caught the cruise ship from Vancouver up to Fairbanks in Alaska, and that was awesome because it went between, in that small space of water, so you had the mainland on one side and then all the islands on the other side. And then you stopped every day you stopped at a destination where you could disembark and enjoy the scenery.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So Alaska was very interesting, and they have what they call a Santa's post office.
Okay.
Yes, and we crossed over the Arctic Circle line, which was a big hike for me. Wow, I'm on the north
top of the world.
Top of the world, nearly on the top of the pole, a sort of thing. Yes, and then from there we got back to Fairbanks, and I decided I wanted to go to. That's on my own after.
The tour group.
After the tour group to Seattle.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that.
The interest in Seattle was they had this humongous Boeing factory there.
Yeah, where they made the planes. Yeah.
It was 4 kilometres square. 4 kilometres. It was massive.
Wow, that's,
Yeah, and that's where they were rolling all the planes off. And so we went on the tour there. We probably didn't see as much as we could have or would have liked to because it was a Sunday. So we didn't see any production line.
Okay.
But they showed us and explained to us how it all works. They bring in the carcass on the roller belt and they do put certain parts, then it rolls onto the next star, and they do it, and they were at that stage building the Concords. No, not the Concorde.
Concorde's not Boeing.
No, not Boeing, no. The Dreamliner.
Oh, okay, yep.
That's Boeing, isn't it?
That's,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure so.
Yeah, and I made the mistake of saying, The jumbos. Where do you make the jump? And then, the other way around. It says that's not our plane. That's the opposition. So that's okay. And then they take you through different stages of the production. So by the time it gets out of the shed on the other side, it's a complete plane. And it then gets rolled out. They check all the things, and the plane goes on the test flight.
Yeah, sweet.
So
that would have been interesting.
I was always interested in planes. Yeah. So it was an amazing journey there. So, and from Seattle, I went to San Francisco. And I was on both places. I did my own thing there.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah. And in San Francisco, went to Yosemite National Park. They have
Yosemite.
Yosemite, yes. National Park, and that was just amazing. Unfortunately, it rained and we couldn't go into some places that would have been, but I saw enough of it. It's just that what they call, they've got the biggest granite on the planet there. This huge, monstrous rock. It's featured on all the brochures and everything.
It's an icon.
It's an icon, but it's solid and granite.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the biggest granite on the planet.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then I think I went on the boardwalk there. I also went to Alcatraz there. And that was amazing. It was quite daunting. We went through the prison cells, or past them, and it was just, these rooms probably half the size of this, just enough for a bed and everything. So that's where they kept the most notorious criminals. And after that, I think that was my last call there, and I came back through Singapore back home.
So that was in 2012? Yep,
Yes.
2012.
Yeah.
Then 2013, you were off to China.
Yes. Harbin, yeah.
That's like a circle.
Well, I had no intentions of going to China. It never interested me.
Okay.
But my travel agent, he was getting a private tour group ready. And he rang me up and he says, Maria, I've only got one space left. Are you interested? And it was Saturday afternoon. It was raining. So I hummed and hard about it. And I rang Rick up again. I used to bounce a lot of things off Rick. And because he was back in Australia and easily accessible, I says, well, I've got this opportunity to go to China. And he said, well, you know Rick.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I rang back then. I said, yes, I'll take that. And that was quite a large tour, nearly 5 weeks.
Wow, that's good.
He picked the best of. There's a tour company, Wendy Wo. She's a expert on China and things like that. See, so he picked all the best places to go. So we basically went from east to west as far as the Tibetan border. Went into Tibet for a short period, an overnighter there, and then up and down and things like that. It was an amazing country.
Yeah.
But my thing then, I said to them, I says, I want about 3-4 days in Harbin. That's where I come from. Can you arrange it? He said, yeah, sure, on my own. I said, so long as you get me a hotel that's on the river and you can see the railway bridge.
Yeah, okay.
That was an icon.
Landmarks for you to find, obviously looking, your bearings for where you grew up.
And I thought if I can find that bridge, I'll be able to find my way around there, So, fair enough. I was probably about a kilometre away from the bridge. I could see it, and I thought, great. But instead of going on the boat across the river, they now have a cable cart.
Okay. Yeah.
and everything has changed.
Progress.
All the little cottages that were on the other side of the river where my grandmother's place was, that was gone. They had a big park there, and that I found out later, that's where they had the Ice and Snow Festival on that part of land close to the river, because they had access to the ice,
Yes.
mined the ice, put it on, and build the
structures.
structures.
Because you went there the following year.
The following year.
Yeah, following
yes.
year in the winter.
In the winter.
The
Yes.
Northern Hemisphere winter. Yeah.
Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
But in the summer one, I still went there, and I enjoyed finding my way around. I found the place where we used to do our shopping in the main street.
Okay.
That sort of led from the river.
Yep.
And it's a mall now. And a lot of the buildings there are now heritage listed. What struck me too in Harbin was the street names were written in 3 languages.
Okay. Yep.
Can you guess?
Chinese.
Yes.
Russian.
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Oh.
100.
Well, look, I'm just going by your heritage, which is Russian. Chinese, you were born there.
Yeah, that's
and
their country.
now you speak English. So, yeah.
No brainer, you reckon?
Well, look, it was a guess.
It was a guess.
I
yeah.
wasn't there and I didn't know.
Well, that was an amazing part of it.
Yeah,
you know.
that is amazing because it fits your language.
Yeah, you did.
And so, did you find the big house?
No,
Okay.
I didn't even attempt to,
Okay.
because I went on the telecom tower that they have there, and that was sort of very central. And I looked in the direction where I thought the house would have been. It's all built up.
Okay.
They've
Yep.
got industry there. They've got things I didn't even. I thought, well, it'd be pointless me wasting time going there. I probably would have liked to seen grandmother's house, but I found roughly where it was.
Yeah.
And that's all built up. As I said, they built this big
park.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was a nice tribute
Yeah.
to.
In your imagination, I imagine, in your imagination, you'd sort of get your bearings and, yeah, that's sort of the area for Grandma's house before you moved over to the city.
City.
And then from the telecom, okay, that's the general area where the big house was, and I guess it's as close as you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked it up and searched Harbin. In 1956, it had a population of 500,000, I think, or 500,000 people.
So that's when you were 8.
When I was, when we left China.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Now they've got a population of 11 million there.
So from 500,000?
From 500,000 to 11 million.
Oh.
That was when I looked up. It's probably more now. And it's semi-industrial city. It's not so much of a tourist city as such, except during the Ice and Snow Festival.
Which you went on a separate trip
On a separate
to
trip.
go and visit.
Yeah. Very soon after.
Yeah,
the first
it was
one.
basically the next winter.
Yeah,
From
that's-
in 2014.
Yeah, 13, I think.
13.
13. Well,
2014, because
14,
2013 you went and rendezvoused. And then when winter came next year, 2014, the Ice Festival.
Yeah. And that was just amazing. I would have loved to, again, I took a tour trip. It was only 2-week tour, but they also went to different areas that I have already been, and I wasn't all that interested, but I had to go along, went and did in the first trip, I'm stepping back a bit, we went to see the Terracotta Warriors. That was just unimaginable, the huge hall that they've got, all undercover, and the diggings underneath there, and the Terracotta Warriors that they have recovered and restored. A lot of them were broken down. And if you're standing on one side of the building there, looked across the other side, the people there looked about that big.
It's big, along
It was
the-
just amazing, and you can walk all the way around and see it and things. So that was one of the highlights. Then we went to the Great Wall of China. I did that twice on both trips, and different areas, and walked
Oh,
up
like different sections of the
that
wall.
Yeah, oh, you
Because it's pretty long.
Oh, yes.
How long is it?
Oh, something like 1,300 kilometres long.
Oh,
Don't
my.
quote me on that. I'm not
Yeah.
too sure. But a lot of it has been in disrepair
Yeah, okay.
because the
Not mu-
time
yeah.
time thing. But what really amazed me was the things that they built with no cranes, no equipment that we had. It was all done by hand and by human. The human sacrifice was immense, and if people sort of died building they just buried them there.
No WHS type concern.
No.
So life was
No.
cheap?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Now this is going back quite a number of years.
Yeah.
I don't know when the wall of the Great Wall was built, but it was centuries ago. And so went on there, and then went to the Forbidden City, which was the palace of the emperors, and that was just amazing. The structure on that was incredible. But anyway, that's enough on China, I think. I could go on and on about
Yeah,
China
yeah.
because
wanna-
there's so much to
Yeah.
carry on there.
Do you want to have a quick touch on the ice?
On the ice,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
All right.
Because,
All right, we'll go into
yeah.
the Ice and Snow Festival.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was amazing what they built with it, and they mined, I suppose, the ice from the frozen river,
Yeah.
which froze up to 1 metre in depth. So that's a pretty indication of how cold it would get there. When we were there, it was minus 23 degrees. I didn't feel it all that much because I think I was well prepared for it.
Yeah. The right clothing.
The right clothing. I bought a jacket in Canada, a parka. Right, they had it on the sale from $250 or something. I picked it up for about $75 because it was end of season, and it fitted me. It was red. It didn't matter, but it was just so warm. I took it with me everywhere, to Iceland, Greenland, anywhere there was ice and snow, and it kept me warm.
Yeah, good.
And also they've got a lot of cafes there. If you're cold, you want to warm up, you just walk into a cafe, have a cup of chocolate or a cup of coffee, whatever you wanted, warmed up inside, and out you go again. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, look, that was 2014, the ice show.
Yeah.
Now at 2015, Scandinavia,
Yeah.
and there's a trail of
On that trip.
on that trip, yeah.
On that trip, yes.
yeah.
So, Scandinavia, I went with Thame and Zaka, the same travel company I used prior to that. And we landed in Helsinki. Is that Helsinki, the capital of... yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't have a clue.
it doesn't...
Yeah. You went to the
doesn't
capital.
yeah, Finland's capital. And then we travelled by train north, but we made a couple of stopovers, and one of them was in a place called the Santa's Village, which was right on the border of the Arctic Circle.
Oh,
They
yeah.
actually have a string or wire going where the
Ah,
line
okay,
is. So
it's well defined.
very well defined, you know, and they have the Santa's Village there, and it was just magical. And they had the reindeers, and I had my first sledge ride on the reindeer there, and that was just incredible. They give you a team, 2 people. So Zaka and I teamed up. He was at the back and I was just sitting as a passenger. And then halfway through I says, okay, it's my turn, you know. So you sure? I said, yeah. And it's all snow and everything. So I took over and I managed to tip the sleigh.
Oh, okay.
And Zach ended up in that much snow.
Was it soft?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's all soft.
So you
Just-
you would have went down too.
Not that much, I don't think.
Okay.
I just somehow landed, kept out of it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Pause that.
Well, I was the driver.
Hmm.
So anyway, but he did let me to continue my journey, and that was amazing there. Then we went to Kirkens, which was north of Finland, right on the top. We went past there where Finland was only 2 kilometres away from Russia.
Oh, okay. That's pretty close.
Very close.
Yeah, neighbours.
Neighbours, yes, absolutely. And Finland's got a lake there on their side of the border.
Yep.
But the Russians are tapping into that water for their own supply. So it's a bit of a
Contention.
construction there, yeah.
Yeah.
So we went to Kirkens and then we caught a small ship, that used to be a working ship going down the side of Norway, Norwegian coast. Because Norwegian coast is very rugged. There's not many roads there.
So rugged as in mountainous and rocky.
Rocky and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not much green trees on it.
Yeah, there were some green trees
Yeah.
and things. It wasn't that bad.
Okay.
But I think it would have been also dangerous because most of the time it would have been covered with snow or sledge,
Yeah, okay.
which making it very difficult to
Keep away from the
Yeah.
cliffs.
So we boarded this working ship, and it was amazing. It only took 200 passengers. We all got to get together, and the captain was very gracious. He would let us go into the cabin so long as you kept quiet. And it was very warm there. So, and then we disembarked in different places on Zodiacs and visited that. And but I lived because you've got a bird's eye view. I got fantastic photographs of it, and the captain would look over at me and give me a bit of a wink and a smile there because I think he realised that I was really into,
Appreciating that space.
the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoying his workplace type thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we went down the Norwegian coast, Norway, called into different places, were able to sort of disembark and explore the little towns that they had built there on the
Coastline.
on the coastline, little villages, and saw a couple of oil tankers going up the strait there.
Okay.
Obviously there was oil there somewhere. And it was amazing. I still look at the photos sometimes to refresh myself
nice.
and think. And we ended up in Bergen, which is part of Oslo. Oslo is the capital of... what country is Oslo capital of?
Oh, you got me. Just looking here.
But anyway,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Not Finland. Danish. Is it Danish?
Yeah,
that's
I know
all right.
Australia and all its states.
Yeah, that's all right. That's okay.
Yeah, but
So we disembarked there and went and looked at the palace and all of that sort of thing. They had a big Russian Orthodox church that was built on sheer rock and was very old, traditional, with icons and things like that. And because it snows under, they have this massive hall structure with about 3-4 aisles there for their food. They can't have it outside because it's snow and everything else, so that was their main shopping centre.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For
Marketplace.
food. Marketplace, yes.
Indoors.
Absolutely. Indoors.
Yeah.
Yes. So from there we went to, what's the next one?
Look, you
from
got
Oslo.
Iceland, glaciers, icebergs, volcanoes, Paris.
Okay. Now that Iceland, is that a continuation? Yes, it is. It's a continuation of the trip to um, uh, Norway and that. So from there we flew over to Iceland. That's right, to Reykjavik. And Iceland is an amazing country. It's only the size of Tasmania, but it's got glaciers, it's got volcanoes, it's got anything nature. It was just amazing. Hot springs.
Two extremes.
Two extremes, yeah.
Like
it was just
fire and ice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we went to a place where they had steam coming out of from underground, and they used that. They tapped that steam for power, electricity.
Okay, yeah.
Used that. So we went right around the country, and on the last day we were about 300-400 kilometres still from Reykjavik, and we were to catch a plane back to. They were going home. I was going to Paris, and so we got bogged. We had two cars. One was an old. Well, it wasn't old. It was a Hyundai, like a big station wagon to fit about 8 people in there, and the other one was a Merc, brand new Mercedes, and Zach and some of the other tour guides and I was in there in the big Merc. And we came to a abrupt stop. No signs, no warnings or anything. End of the road.
No,
So
that's handy.
that was very handy, yeah. So Zach tried to do a U-turn, and he landed somehow on a huge rock, about that, and the Merc was just stuck on that rock. No amount of digging, no anything could get us off there. The boys tried to and pull it out with the little Hyundai, nothing would budge it. And I can see Thame and Zach looking at the time because we had to get back to the
Connections, like travel connections.
Yes, yeah. People slowed down, had a look, and probably thought, oh, stupid tourist, and didn't stop. But there was one guy, he was a tourist guide, and he had his big minibus, 4-wheel drive minibus, and he had Chinese or Japanese tourists there, and they all came out taking photos and things, but he had all the equipment.
Recovery
Equipment. So he pulled us off the block, and we thought, oh, okay, how much damage did you do to a brand new Merc? You can just imagine. So anyway, Zach dropped us all off at the hotel. We packed and we got to the airport in time. And I said to him later on, I says, did anybody ask about the damage underneath there? He says, no, we haven't heard about it. So that was a good thing, you know, so that was a bit of an adventure there. So and from there I went to Paris. I wanted to see Paris, and I was there for about 5 days by myself. It was very interesting. I saw the Eiffel Tower, the Arch of Triumph, the Louvre, and also the Versailles Palace. That was so all the historical places. That was just amazing. And there I had an encounter with a gypsy, who was, I think I probably would have told you the story when I came back, and the gold ring.
I remember a gypsy somewhere, but it may come back to me when you unpack it now.
I was coming back from I did a lot of walking there actually, and they had the Paris Opera House. Then they had a road coming to a very large departmental store, and it had about 5 ways that you could go. So I thought, all right, I had a look at the time. I've got time for a cup of coffee. So I was concentrating on crossing the road to the shop, the big shop there. And this lady came up to me. She said, "Look what I found on the ground. Look what I found." And it was a male wedding ring, quite large, quite thick and things. I says, "Oh, good, yeah." She said, "You want it?" I says, "No." And that I says, I don't want it. You know, you keep it. No, 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 no. You have it. And I said, "No." But anyway, we're bartering and things like that. And then she says, "Well, give me money." I says, "No, I haven't got any money." And the traffic lights changed and I started walking across the road. And she was following me, still harassing me. I said, "See that shop over there? I'm going to go in there and get security guards." She just disappeared into air, you know.
She was a genie too, eh?
Well, she was a genie as well. So I went into
Vapor.
the shop and I thought, okay, I'm sure she's got some accomplice here. And I had a good 5-10 minute walk to the hotel from this place. And I thought, well, she probably got some accomplice and they might be on the lookout, because I was by myself, on the lookout for me. And so I went to the bathroom, I had a look, I had a cup of coffee. I don't know, I probably spent about half an hour or so.
You stalled as long as you could.
And I thought, well, and because the shop was at an angle like that, they had entrance on this side and this side. So I entered into this one and I thought, hopefully if I exit out there and then I can continue straight onto the hotel. So that was it. I did that, but I used to stop every so often and look over my shoulders and things, and you know, just to make sure I wasn't being followed. Been very cautious. And I came back to the hotel. I was, whew, and the manager, desk manager, he was really lovely. He said, "How was your day?" And I related to him what happened, and he just burst out laughing. He said, "Welcome to Paris." And before that, I said to him, I said, "You know, before I came to Paris, and I told some of my friends I was coming here, they warned me that Parisian people are not very friendly. They don't like visitors and things, you know." And I said, and before I said something else, he says, "That would have been 10 years ago, madam." He says, "We realise that we need tourists for our economy."
Come back.
So I says, "Oh dear." And I thought you were just a nice person. So I bought some stuff here from the $2 shop to take with me from Australia, and I had a cap, and you mentioned that he had a 10-year-old son. So I went and got it and gave it to him, and he just looked after me. If I said I want to go to so and so, he gave me the directions and everything else, and on the way you can do this. So that was my Parisian visit. And from there I flew to Singapore, as I always did. I disembarked, had a night in Singapore before I flew to Brisbane, because it's a long flight. And so Singapore's pretty safe, and by that time I knew my way around. So then I came home.
And that was your Finland,
Yes.
Paris, yeah.
Yeah.
And then that same year, you ended up going to Vietnam and Cambodia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my tour guide, Thame, or the owner of the company, he was Vietnamese. And every year he would arrange a tour guide to go, or tour group to go to Vietnam. And so he rang me up, he says, "Oh, I'm doing one, are you interested?" And I mean, it was very, very reasonable. I think it was 2 weeks or something, can't remember now how long it was, but it was very reasonable, very cheap to go there. I said, "Yeah, I'll go." And that was an interesting experience in the sense that you get out of the airport and the traffic there is just horrendous.
Big time.
Big time. And all of them on little scooters and bikes, and they weave in and out of traffic. And I'm like, well, how do you get across the road here? You know, it's just, you're taking your life in your own hands. But anyway, Zach and I flew in together, and we went and stayed the night at Thames sister's place. And that was very nice, very quiet, and she lives there. She's got a massage therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So she treated, when the other group arrived, us to we paid for it, but to a massage therapy.
Okay.
I got the top of the range. It was a water therapy,
Yeah.
where you lie on a flat marble, I suppose, or something like that, and they massage you with water and oils, and the water just the right temperature, and it was just amazing. So, and then we set out next day on exploring Vietnam. What's the capital? Saigon. Saigon. They call it Hanoi now, don't they? No, Hanoi's up north. So we travelled to, I don't know, but anyway, we went to Hanoi, which is the capital of Vietnam. A lot of history there. In Saigon, stepping back, we saw a building. They've got a monument to it, where the last American helicopter took off after the war there.
Yep.
So you could see it quite plainly. I think, if I remember rightly, they've even got a helicopter on there to mark the spot on the top of the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And very interesting culture, full of temples, and just very, very different here. And then we went up north to a place called Sapa, where they grow rice on the hills.
And
How
the
they
terraces.
terraces there. It's just amazing. Really steep hills, high hills, and they all terraced and things. People were very friendly, and it was a good time. And we went to see a puppet show in one of their theatres, and that was interesting because that's their culture.
Yep.
That's what they did. And then we went to Cambodia, caught a river ship from Saigon to across Mekong River to Cambodia. Now, before that, before we caught the ship, we went to the place where they had the tunnels. During the war, they built those tunnels there.
All right.
And that was amazing. It was 250 kilometres long.
Wow. That's a long way.
It's a long way.
Underground.
And it was all hand built, I suppose. And they had a hospital there. They had a kitchen there. They had a shops there. Everything was self-contained. And what they did when they did the cooking, they had to get the smoke to... You can't keep the smoke in there. It'll be overcome. So they used to do their cooking in the morning, 3-4 o'clock in the morning, when there was fog.
Yeah.
So the smoke and the fog got mixed, and they didn't know where it was, whether it was the fog or whether it was the smoke. So that was amazing, and we had an opportunity to go down and experience what it was like in there. About 5 people said yes, they would go. 4 of them, once they got down, they said, no, we can't do this. They went up. Guess who the 5th person was?
You.
Me. And I thought, well, I've come this far, I might. And you're with a guide and everything, you're not on your own. And I was just the right height, didn't have to bump into anything. And then in the middle of it, you turned the lights off and it was pitch black.
Yeah.
It wasn't a long trip, probably from the corner over there around here to this corner here. What would that be?
So maybe 40, 50 metres.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But just the same, when I got to the top, I was very happy to see the sun again. But I did it.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah, cool.
And everybody then said, oh, I wish we have done it, Well, hello, you had the opportunity and you didn't take it. So, yeah. And Cambodia.
That was in Cambodia, yeah?
Not the tunnels, no, the tunnels were still in Vietnam. Then we got the ship to go to the border to Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
And that was quite confronting. We went, you know, a little bit of the history of Cambodia. They had
The killing fields?
the killing fields, yeah. So they took us to that. Zaka couldn't go, he just stayed out. But most of us went, and you can still smell the rotting flesh.
Mm.
It's still in the air, you know. And they built a monument, glass monument, 4 sides, and they filled them up with the skeletons, the heads,
okay.
the skulls of the people that they recovered in those fields.
Mm.
And it was just very, very confronting. But this is what evil people do. He killed about half of his population, 3 million people he killed because they were a threat to him. They were doctors, they were nurses, they were educators, they were engineers. Anybody who had an education, he got rid of. Just left with the pheasants, because the pheasants would, peasants, they would go anywhere, they'll follow. He didn't want any competition, so he'd go to the village, go to the city, and he'll say, "Oh, I need some help. I need these sort of people," and things like that. And of course, everybody got up and said, "Yeah, I'll go." Load them onto the trucks and take them straight to the killing fields. So it was a very interesting, confronting country. As we were going, this on the back of a cart drawn by oxes. And we were sitting with a friend that I befriended on the trip. We were sitting, just Christine, with her feet dangling over the side and talking, taking in the scenery and that. And this boy came up, and he would have been about 10. And he said, "Hello." I said, he was on my side. I said, "Hello." And he said, "Can I talk to you in English?" I said, "By all means." He says, "I'm learning English, but the teachers aren't very good here, so can I talk to you?" So we sort of had a long chat walking around, and then when we got to the boat again, disembarked, he went away, he disappeared, and I thought, oh, okay. I didn't get a chance to say hooray to him. He came back, he picks a small bunch of flowers, wildflowers, and he gave them one for me and one for Christine. And and then we went to Angkor Wat, which is the big building that built in hundreds of years ago. It was a temple, I think. It's massive construction, so that was something that I wanted to see. I visited that, and then after that we went back and caught the plane back to Australia. So that's sort of the short of it. Probably not as short as I could have made it, but once it's sort of sharing
memories.
Yes, memories.
Yeah. I can see you reliving it.
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
yes, you're right. Yeah. And as I sort of say one thing, I'll think, oh, that's what happened. And I only told you just a teeny-weeny little bit, really, of what it was like, you know.
Well, add all the time up, and you probably know at least 6 months solid away if you backed it all up.
Yeah.
And you still got, like, your last trip that you've noted here was 2016 to Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls, yes.
I guess this one here.
Yeah, Niagara Falls and Greenland.
Would wrap up your travels,
yes,
would it?
That would wrap it up, yeah. I wanted to go to Niagara Falls, of course. And I also I got a trip that included Niagara Falls, then voyage down Hudson River, I think, and then from there flew over to Greenland. And then we caught a ship there across it was an expedition ship, again only about 200 people on there, and we stopped off because on the east side of Canada there are so many islands. I didn't know. Some of them aren't very big, some of them are, and just, you know, amazing place. And so we went there to Greenland, and we were on the Zodiac, and that's where I saw my first polar bear.
Oh, yep.
That on the last day, and I wasn't going to go. I thought, oh, I'm tired, because you've got to get all geared up in all this safety gear and things. It's heavy, and I was tired, and I thought, no, I won't bother. And at the last minute, I decided, well, heck, it's the last day. I'm going to go.
Push the
it,
limits. Yeah.
Yes. And we saw mother and cub of bears on the bank up on the top of the hill, not too far away, very easily spotted. And then as we were heading back, there was a little passage there with the mainland on one side and some rocks. I don't know whether it was an island or what it was. And as we're powering along there, this mother polar bear, right from here, probably to the thing. So she cut the motor straight away, and the mother kept going all she was worth. The cub was trying to keep up with her at the back. She got to the bank and straight up the hill, and then she sort of looked down, oh, where's my cub? And anyway, he got across safely and joined his mum. So that was a lovely way to finish my travel.
Yeah.
And Greenland, I didn't know why they call it Greenland. I didn't see one single bit of green there.
Does it melt in the summer?
I don't think so.
So it's constantly
I think
white.
yes. Well, it was cold, but there wasn't any snow on the ground. Right?
Okay.
There wasn't any snow on the
Any
ground.
greenery?
But it was very rocky,
Ah,
very
yeah. Yep.
rough.
Hard, not
Hard.
topsoil
Yeah.
or
No, that's
lush.
yes.
It was
Absolutely.
sterile, like mineral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we took a helicopter flight over Greenland there, and flew over this place. And the pilot pointed out, he said, see that big area there? He said, that's what we call an ice desert. He said, let me explain to you. He says, the ice is frozen here up to 1 kilometre down, and it never melts.
Wow.
And things. So that was, yeah. And then we were nearly late for the ship. They had to wait for us. We got off, and then there was 6 of us, and we had to cram into this little car, a taxi, what they call a taxi. Guys were hanging out and everything, no safety issues whatsoever. And they got us back, and we were the last passengers to get back on the boat.
Yeah.
But nobody else ventured out. We did, you know, and I'm glad we did, because they're the only ones.
So make the most of it.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
only the most of it. Yes. So that was my adventure, and I was so glad that I had the opportunity to go and meet and visit those places. And the things that I had an opportunity to go to New York. And Zach said, it's only 2 hours from here by plane. I'm going there, you want to come with me? And I said, no. I says, I'm not interested in New York. I says, I can see buildings anywhere. I can see them in Sydney if I wanted to see buildings that big, you know. I said, what I'm interested is in nature. And I think a lot of my tours were
Took you
nature
out.
and history
Yeah.
orientated, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, that's so cool, because you worked hard through your working life. Life was hard
Yes.
for you from the beginning. And here you are, you had Canada, the snowy Rocky Mountains
That's all I wanted to do.
on your bucket list. And early retirement.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know, if you didn't retire early, you wouldn't be able to cram all that in.
I probably would have. I would have made a very good go of it.
Well, look, you had a pretty good go at it there.
Yeah.
And so rewarded in a sense, where you were able to, you know, do your bucket list and some.
And I actually felt free, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Yeah.
I felt free.
Well,
The responsibility wasn't there,
yeah.
and
Do
the job
what, when.
wasn't there. So,
Yeah.
hey,
Look.
and I had the means of
Yeah.
doing all that.
Mm.
And so, yes, no, that was probably the most rewarding or exciting times of my life.
Well, yeah. It's I'm so glad that you have been rewarded for your
Thank you.
for
Thank
your
you.
efforts
Yeah.
that you put in, because
Yeah.
you gave a lot of yourself. You did it tough, and to be able to go and live your dream, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially the Rocky Mountain, mountaineer that trained. I saw it on a doc on the TV, and that's when I fell in love with it, and I want to do that. That's
cool.
my bucket list. So that was the start of it.
So now here you pretty much finish. Well, put the end of your sort of international travels.
Yes.
At that point, you're back at Springwood.
Yes.
But obviously we're not at Springwood at the moment.
No, we're not.
No.
So, interesting thing about Springwood, when I put it on the market, I found some old documents, which I sort of glanced through and things, didn't pay too much attention to it. But when I sold Springwood, the settlement date for the sale and the purchase date when I purchased Springwood was 21st of March, 40 years apart.
To the day.
To the day.
So you bought it, you owned it for 40 years to the day.
Yeah. What a coincidence. It just sort of blew me away.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't make any difference to the change or anything.
No.
But just to see that happen.
Like,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And I bought Springwood for 77,000, and I sold it for 780,000. So in 40 years, you could see how much
Tenfold.
the properties.
10 times.
10 times. Having said that, I also did a lot of renovations, as you know, extensions, and a lot of work to Springwood.
Well, it didn't just sit there for 40 years.
No, it didn't.
I can remember you painted the place times.
Numerous
I
times.
don't know how thick the paint is now, but the hallways are narrower.
Yes, they probably are.
Yeah.
And wallpapered it and stripped it and painted it and things, and then enclosed the garage, made it into an entertainment room, because that was a double garage there. Put the carport out there, extended the patio,
back pergola.
Put pergola there, and all these little bits and pieces sort of probably added a little bit of value, but not that much.
Well, look, a little bit of value because it changed, but kept the value on the increase as everything else goes up. You kept it maintained.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I think the main point in my decision in selling Springwood was I was aging, but also it needed a lot of work to be done on it, maintenance work. The posts were starting to rot at the bottom, they were sagging, there were a couple of leaks and things like that. So, and I wasn't up to it, I didn't want to be involved in that.
Yeah.
And I was
That's fair enough.
myself as well.
Well, a 4-bedroom house for a single lady.
Yeah.
I mean, the house served a purpose to house your mob.
Yes.
The mob flew the coop. And
they did, yes.
there you were for years in a 4-bedroom house, but today we sit in your new home,
Yes.
a 3-bedroom home, Eagleby Heights, I believe.
Yes, Eagleby. Yes.
And it's a lovely place in a gated community.
Yes.
And I know you've got some lovely friends
I've made
here.
some lovely friends here, which I think, living in Springwood, the downsides were there were younger families and they were working. They were friendly, but you only had exposure to them once a week during the weekend, and they were busy, and I could have been busy and things like that. So it could be 2 or 3 months before you said anything to anyone, you know. But here, there's, you know, like, you know, yesterday
Opportunities.
somebody comes and knocks on your door, and you know, come and have a cup of coffee, come and do this. There's so much to do here. I haven't got myself into that frame of mind yet, but I will.
Sounds like you're planning.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I
of
know,
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's, how would you say, a lot of
Work in
adjustments.
progress.
It is a work in progress because with our conversations, you're still having challenges.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, yeah, but you've got some good support here.
Yeah,
And you're working through, you know, working through a little bit of health stuff.
yes.
But there's hope that
Yeah.
you can, go and do a lot of those activities. You'd feel more, and yeah.
Well, you know, I'm not a person to sit on my backside. I always
I
had
know
to have a
that.
project. I always had to have a project.
Yep.
As you can see, what I've done in 12 months in the garden, you can remember what it was like when I
Yeah.
moved in and what I've done to it. I'm very, very proud of it. Even the front of the place.
The front yard.
Everybody comments, I love your roses. Your roses are beautiful. You know, we just pulled everything out. Rick helped and John helped, did all the heavy work, got rid of all that stuff and start from scratch. You know, so yeah, I do love gardening. It's my escapism, if you want to put it that way.
Well, look, we all have that happy place.
Happy place.
Yeah, like I love surfing. That's my happy place.
that's your happy place.
Yours is the garden, and yeah, Jade's is with a paintbrush. So, yeah,
We need that time to ourselves, and yes, absolutely.
yeah. So before we wrap it up completely, Mum, a few words to wrap it up, sign off. Yeah.
Okay. This is my message to my children. Carolyn, Rick, Rodney, Tracy, and also my grandchildren are included, with Christy and Buddha, Blake and Jalen. This is the story of my life, starting in China as a child and the travels to where I am today. And I just wanted to share this with you, and I hope you enjoy watching it and maybe have a better understanding of me. And just remember, I loved you, I love you now, and I always will. Love you.